Good evening and welcome to Face to Face. I'm your host Niresh Aliyatambi on behalf of the Newsfirst team. Well, the NPP government set itself a very high standard with many promises, and the people responded by giving it more than 60% of the vote and 159 seats in Parliament. So it has a very tough job. Now, is it working to its own standard? Is it facing up to the challenges? Is it solving the people's issues? And even now, the NPP government has some amazing challenges ahead, and a lot of criticism is already coming its way. Some of it may be a little unfair, but some of it gives food for thought to many people. Right, to discuss all this and its early days, of course, in the course of this government, we have with us Mr. Nuwan Bopage, no stranger to our programs. He is, of course, from the People's Struggle Alliance and an attorney at law. Welcome, Nuwan. So, Nuwan, you, of course, represent a more far left bunch of voters, which has been vociferous, although it may be a smaller constituency. And you have been highly critical of the previous regime, the one before that, and of course now it is your duty to ensure that this government stays the course. So how's the government doing? I mean, it's early days, just a few weeks, but how do you see it panning out?
Of course, actually, we can't expect miracles within 1 month period of time. However, the most important thing is the way that government is addressing certain issues. It reflects as to how they are going to govern in future as well. Now, during the presidential election and general election, our main criticism was the policy statement. The manifesto of NPP was neoliberal manifesto. So as a result of that, what we presume that it's very difficult to resolve most of the issues if they selected this neoliberal path. So then now we can see as to how the government is analyzing and as to how government is going to give solutions to certain issues. Always that our previous criticism is coming to the surface as a practical component.
Now, Nuwan, you brought up the issue of the manifesto, and prior to the elections, especially the first one, the presidential one, everyone was talking about the NPP's manifesto and the manifestos of other parties. But since the election, we don't hear anyone really talking about the manifestos.
Yeah.
So is this exercise of compiling a manifesto merely just something academic? Even your party had a very detailed manifesto which you had in all 3 languages, and it was one of the first manifestos to come out, I believe.
Yeah.
But what happens to these manifestos in the end? Because after the election, we don't even see the physical document.
Yeah, but now if we carefully peruse the statements of the NPP ministers and other the stakeholders, most of the time when we raise certain issues, what they are saying, that is not included in our manifesto. Therefore, we are not liable to do. So even though most of the people, we don't believe that they casted their vote for NPP after reading the manifestos. So actually, most of the people voted for them to actually deny the previous political culture, at the same time against the corruption. But now when they started to govern the country, of course, these policy issues now come into the surface. Then only actually, as political activists, the first document we have their manifesto. For instance, now they are going to complete the ISB deal, the sovereign bond reschedule. So in their manifesto, they said that they are going to implement alternative DSA. In their manifesto, they say, but now they are not willing to go for alternative DSA. Now they are going to affirm the original deal of Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Now,
Then, as political
your party
activists,
had a much more hardline stance from the beginning. You basically said exit the IMF agreement in its entirety.
Yes. So we had a scientific explanation for that. Now, anyway, if we assume that people voted after perusing their manifesto, it says they are willing to go. They definitely implement alternative DSA now, which they are not going to do. In a situation like that, being a political activist, actually we are liable to people, so we are responsible. Now we can raise that. Why we can raise that? Because that is included in the manifesto. That's why it's very important to actually discuss and analyze their manifestos. So basically, other issues also the same. For instance, now, as I said earlier, it was a pro-neoliberal manifesto. Now, recently, shortage of rice issue is there in the society. So people have to pay around 250, 260 for 1 kilo of rice. But now we know the 2024 harvest is concerned. Actually, our farmers, the harvest was around 44 lakhs metric tons. So actually, the consumption is concerned, around 30 lakhs of metric tons are sufficient for the consumption, for year consumption. Therefore, technically there's no shortage of rice. But in the market now there's a shortage. So why? By these monopolies, 5 or 6 families only controlling this market. So if you abide by the neoliberal policy, of course you have to entertain these monopolies. So that's the main concept of neoliberalism. So market should decide everything. So that's why this policy statement is very important. That's why even the previous election we said that if you are going to have these neoliberal policies, you can't resolve even small issues like this.
But Nuwan, we have never had a free market economy. We've always had some cartel, a bunch of businessmen who are supposed to compete, but instead they get together and they set the prices, and they always keep the smaller players out.
Yes.
So newer ventures can't come in.
Yes.
And they do this with all types of different methods, which are not always above board. And they usually have the police in their pocket and various officials in their pocket. So in essence, they control a particular industry. So it could be rice, it could be vegetables, it could be sand, cement, all these things. We know that they are controlled by, not by the government, not by any government that I can remember, but by these particular businessmen.
Yes.
If you want to call them businessmen. But now the system change, which was called for, is to basically to get rid of these old systems,
yes, exactly,
which victimized.
Exactly.
I mean, 22 million people were being victimized every day by these cartels, these oligopolies.
Yes.
I mean, Sri Lanka is basically the living definition of an oligopoly, which is, I mean, something that economic students learn on basically the first week, you know, when they start studying economics.
Okay.
So this has to be taken care of. This has to be smashed. But how now? If you were in the government, how would you set about doing this?
Of course, you, as you correctly pointed out, now even in the left politics, even you know, the Lenin wrote a book about the imperialism. So he explained as to how these oligarchies are controlling the world even. So now in Sri Lankan context, of course, when you see the rice market, even now coconut market, there are massive monopolies. They only control everything. So that's why now that's why we are saying as to how we should what is the economic path that you are going to follow. Neoliberal economy always say that market should decide everything. Government should not be interfere with the market. Even in the NPP, I think you remember just before the election, they had a big convention about with the I think the businessmen and industrial field. So in that, what they raise, they accept the neoliberal policy, and government should not be interfere with the market. So that was their policy. Now,
but Nuwan, there is no market. If a particular set of people are holding the country hostage, that's not a market.
No, there is a market, but that market fully controlled by that monopolies.
Yes, because now my point is, if a new entrant, another businessman decides he's going to become a mill owner in Polonnaruwa, what chance does he have?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to raise now. In early 90s, what happened was now recently I had a few cases, but in 90s, there were number of small scale and middle scale mills. Now what happened was the banks and these few families got together. They had a plan to completely collapse these small and medium scale mills. As a result of that, early stage of year 2000, what happened was that most of these small and medium scale the mills were closed. As a result of that, they took over the control of the market. So that's how they did that. So now ultimately that has been detrimental to the consumers are concerned. Now, for instance, now the market, now whatever price that they are giving, we have to accept that. Nobody is there to compete with them. So that is a monopoly. So as you correctly said, now previous government are concerned, we can't blame them because Podujana Peramuna, they fully with these monopolies, and Ranil Wickremesinghe's regime, that is the main party that implemented the neoliberal economy to Sri Lanka. Therefore, they are with that economic system. But why the people have given this massive power? Just not because of this corruption. People wanted to system change. Then you can't say the president cannot just ask them to come to the table and threaten them to do this and that. There are sufficient laws of the country. So you can immediately implement, no need further discussion. For instance, Consumer Affairs Authority Act is concerned. Of course, if they are artificially making shortage in the market, these authorities can interfere with that. They can do something.
And I mean, that's their job.
That's their job.
That's what we pay those officials to do. And it has nothing to do with politicians. Consumer Affairs Authority or whatever the department is, the officials have a job to do. That's what they get their salaries for. So why would they need a direction from a minister or even the president, for goodness sake, to do their job?
Exactly. The other thing is now, I heard that there is a debate in the society as to how we assess the stocks. So no need to even read to find out this, because most of these families, these who are controlling the monopoly, so they stock these their stocks. Basically they are taken as loans from they borrowing loans from BOC and People's Bank. Then only they stock these things. So if you carefully, if you could analyze these statements in the bank, you can easily find out what is the stocks, how much stocks with them. So there are ample ways them to just get an idea about how many stocks available with them.
I mean, Nuwan, we've been growing rice on this island for 2,500 years or more, and we still don't know how much rice
Exactly.
we've harvested? Of course we know. And the fact is, after every harvest, we have the data, the central bank and so many such organizations come out with the data, come out with press releases. It's on their websites. So we know well in advance, many months in advance, whether there's going to be a rice crisis or a potato crisis or onion crisis or whatever. We know. We are, after all, an agricultural country. So,
Yeah, of course.
How could we not know?
Yeah, now paddy harvest is concerned, as you correctly pointed out, the statistics are available. So last two seasons are concerned, 48 lakhs metric ton. The harvest was there, so that is sufficient for the consumption of whole year. At the same time, coconut crisis is also concerned. That's also the same. There are clear cut statistic regarding that. Then we can no point of blaming monkeys or anybody else for this crisis. For last 3-4 years, of course, there is a downfall of harvest. The coconut is concerned. But without analyzing this downfall, what they did, they exported around 800 million coconut without having proper analysis. What is the amount that we need for the local consumption? So earlier it was around 200 million. So last year it is 800 million. So then what is the result? Result is clear that people for local consumption, there's no coconut. So countries like India, they are giving prominence, the priority to the local consumption. Then only if there is a shortage of harvest, then they actually minimize or reduce the export. So there's a control. So now our authorities were unable to do this analysis and control the export. As a result of that, we are facing this. So then what this government is doing, they are blaming for monkeys. So that is not what we expect from a government like this.
But Nuwan, every Gramanillari area has local officials. Now, where I live, we've got our Gramanillari, we've got our midwife, we've got an agricultural officer.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're all in the same small building. The 3 tiny rooms which are open, and they are talking to each other. So they know, and they get the statistics. They do field visits. They know exactly who's harvesting what. Then they talk to the farmers, so they know.
Yes.
And their reports are sent up to the relevant divisional secretariats and the ministries. So there is no way that our central government doesn't know. So this basically is a man-made situation. It's almost as if the rice mill owners challenged the government right after the elections. I mean, the price went up just a couple of days after President AKD took oaths as president. So, you could even say this was a political challenge.
Yeah, of course. Now, from top to bottom, this issue is there. Now, as a lawyer, I know the Attorney General has vast powers, decision-making powers. So, what the problem is, we have that experience when it comes to court cases or bail issue, criminal issue, any other issue. Ultimately, they have to go behind the politicians to get their mandate, they get their orders. So all the other institutions are the same. For instance, you might remember soon after this government was appointed, for certain retired police officers, they might have a good previous character or track record. But few retired police officers were appointed for high seats. Then what is the indication given by what is the reason for giving these posts? Because they were in their election campaign. Now once you give, they might be good people, they have a good track record, but the people who wanted to change the culture never expect this kind of appointment. So merely because they supported your campaign, you can't appoint them. So once you appoint people like them, then they always relied upon the orders of politicians who appointed them. So they are liable to do that. So that culture should be changed. as you said, now there are certain countries now, South Korea, Singapore, now those are the countries who actually implementing these neoliberal policies now. First of all, what they did, these authorities, they have massive powers, so they are very independent, and even the corruptions are concerned, they have been given, they are vested with power, and they are implementing that.
Absolutely.
At least if you accepting that neoliberal policies, these are the things you could do. But even these things also, we can't see that they are doing. So that created big issues like that. Then ultimately now, even an issue like rice, why the president asking them to come and summon them and having discussion and giving media coverage and hit tables? No need. This is not the culture. Authority has that power, implement that, raid these institutions, or otherwise take over them. So these are the solutions that people expect. But I can't see the NPP is brave enough to do that, or they won't really want to implement these kind of rigid rules.
Well, that's the interesting part, isn't it? Because here, I mean, it's such a in-your-face, open and shut situation. Everybody knows in this country, everybody knows what goes on with the paddy harvest, how the rice mill owners control everything. And this is exactly what needs to be smashed, which needs to be redone, rewritten. And the playing field has to be opened up. So when you see that finally nothing has happened to the mill owners who caused the shortage, who caused the increase in prices,
of course,
artificially. In most countries, if you cause shortages, or if you do this sort of price fixing nonsense, you'll end up in jail. In countries like the United States or Singapore, you will end up in jail. So why is it that we see no action?
Yeah, now the other thing is, you know, when we last few decades are concerned, now we know paddy market board was there. It has been completely collapsed. So the government and the authorities purposefully paved the way to these institutions to be collapsed. So that has been given extra advantage.
So clearly previous regimes working hand in glove with these oligarchs,
yes,
and to the detriment of the people.
Yes,
which, I mean, it sounds almost treasonous to me. I mean, there has to be a dozen laws which should be applied on those politicians, as well as the oligarchs, but it simply doesn't get done.
Yeah, both sides now, farmers and consumers both are suffering because of this.
Yeah,
now,
I mean, farmers don't get rich ever.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And consumers simply get poorer and poorer in this land where anything grows. You throw a seed out even onto the road, it will grow. There's so much, there's soil, there's water, everything grows in this country, and yet we have these shortages.
Now, that's why now for this rice issues is concerned, actually the 90% of the harvest, the farmers, Sri Lankan farmers, they are supplying 90% of the local consumption. So that is sufficient to actually cover the entire country's rice consumption. The issue is now as to how the government is going to face these monopolies. That's in simple, that is the reason. Now then whatever discussion with president or prime minister or relevant minister should be focused as to how eradicate this monopoly. Unless you doesn't have a plan to do that, this issue will be there throughout the year and throughout the next few years. So what we expect, what the people expect this government, show us what would be your plan to completely eradicate this issue. Rather than giving a plan, you cannot just say like previous government, we are going to import rice. and we are going to impose a minimum price rate. So that would not be a solution. First, you have to identify the crisis. So as to how you face, as to how you eradicate the monopoly is the most important thing. Up to now, there is no answer or plan from the government to do that. So that's the main issue that we are raising.
Expectations are high indeed for this government, and we'll discuss this further after this short commercial break, so don't go away.
A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
That's enough!
හුඟක් ප්‍රසිද්ධ මීඩියා එකක ඉන්න ජර්නලිස්ට් කෙනෙක් ඔයාලගේ ඉවෙන්ට් එකට බෝම්බයක් අරගෙන එනවා.
මට මගේ දරුවව නැති කරපු කෙනාව කොහොමද අමතක කරන්න කියලා මට කියනවා.
ඉන්නේ හෙට රාත්‍රී 9:30ට සිරස ටෙලිතිරයෙන්.
Welcome back to Face to Face. We are in conversation with Mr. Nuwan Bopage of the People's Struggle Alliance. Nuwan, we live in the land of impunity. Everybody seems to get away with whatever they want to do as long as they have money or power or some connections. And we have seen time and again officials, political leaders, they simply get away with everything up to murder. So how do we set this straight? We have open and shut cases. We have a Supreme Court judgment against the last president, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, that he has denied the fundamental rights of the people by not holding the local government election. We have a Supreme Court judgment against most of the Rajapaksa family that they were responsible, along with various high officials, for collapsing the economy. Whether intentionally or not is another matter, but the Supreme Court has already spoken on these. But what happens? Nothing. Now, isn't it the duty of the present government to ensure that such matters are put to rest, that action is taken now.
Yeah, of course. Now, for instance, now there is a presidential commission report regarding the bond scam.
That's right.
At the same time, there is a
We have commission reports. You could fill a container with commission reports, Nuwan. And those reports, they just gather dust.
Yes.
Very few people read them. It's usually not even available online, but many of those are very fine reports. The commissioners are usually Supreme Court judges or retired judges. They do a fine job. All the details are there. But then the report goes to the president or parliament and then just vanishes, gathers dust. I mean, we have had commissions. I can remember commissions as far back as President Premadasa, and nothing happens.
Yeah. Now, for East attack also there is a presidential commission report. Now, why I talk about these two commission reports, in bond scam there are clear-cut culprits. So you can easily bring them before court and start litigation against them. East attack is concerned, there is a comprehensive report. The government said certain pages actually missing, but that is, you can't just give us that kind of statements.
No, that is, you know, in England, in the United States, there is a famous saying, children come and tell their teachers, my dog ate the homework. I did the homework and then the dog ate it. Right? So to say that pages are missing from a commission report is ludicrous, because these are not hand typed. These are on computers. At least, you know, the people who type them in on MS Word or whatever, they have those. So you can't say that, well, this is the physical book and there are some pages missing. If there are pages missing, go back to whoever wrote it and get the original.
Why these two commission reports are very important, just to answer your question. Both these reports are concerned the main culprit and the main person who actually liable, who should get the responsibility, is Ranil Wickremesinghe, then Prime Minister and recently past President. Now, this government has a duty to implement the law and bring them before court and give the justice to people. So, as you said, as a lawyer, I know law is not always justice. Laws are there, but justice, basically powerful people and who has the money power, they could easily get rid from these laws and bend the justice. So in a situation like that, I think this government should immediately take this to their hand, go through these available reports. So now certain governments, as you said, they use these, they appointed this commission just to take time, just to avoid the justice. But based on available reports, you can do something. How this government could do that? Now Ranil Wickremesinghe is appreciating and praise this government, that this government is going to go forward with his policies, his economic policies, his agendas, and governments also the same. Now,
that's what, Nuwan, just because Mr. Wickremesinghe is praising the present government, a lot of people are praising the present government. That's fine. When they get things right, they can be praised. It's a matter of opinion. I mean, you may say that they are doing well. I may say they are not doing well. So that's fine. But if I have committed some injustice, some crime, then just because I praise the government doesn't mean I should get off.
Yeah, that's a problem. Now,
it's apples and oranges.
That Ranil Wickremesinghe praising this government is a different issue. But technically on the ground, it is clear this government also going ahead with the whatever policies and agendas of the Ranil Wickremesinghe, especially regarding the economy. So then can the people expect that this government to implement certain laws against Ranil Wickremesinghe?
Well, why not? Why not? Because just because you continue certain policies, that's a different argument. But if the people who first implemented those policies are in the wrong for something else, then why not? We can't just say, oh, well, that's a friend of mine, that's a relative, that guy is praising me. I mean, that's not law, that's not justice.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying why there is no why the government is not committed to do that. Why government doesn't want to do that? Because it's very clear when you have if you have a certain understanding about the political situation of the country, political landscape of the country, actually we can't see any resistance for Ranil Wickremesinghe's policies and previous conduct. So very happily, while implementing Ranil's policies, at the same time we feel that things are going very smoothly, favorable to Ranil Wickremesinghe and previous authorities. So nothing will be happen on the ground. So if you really want to take action against them, you have to be firm. You have to directly tell. You can't just say pages are missing. If you want to implement that, you can bring down various reasons. But if you really want to implement that, the existing reports are sufficient. So therefore, this conduct or this behavior of the government doesn't indicate that they are going to take any action against these Ranil Wickremesinghe or previous authorities, especially as you said, there is a Supreme Court judgment how the Mahinda Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe is liable for this economic collapse, economic downfall. So these materials are available right now. So you can make use them and take immediate action. So in those things you cannot just say we only want this government is only 1 month, we can't do miracles. So these are available things. So therefore, at least based on these available materials, you have to show people that justice is going to be implemented, and people have been suffering for last 5-6 years because of the decisions taken by these authorities. So therefore, we need justice. People need justice. For instance, going beyond that, now disappearances are concerned. So there are reports like LLRC reports. So these kind of reports are available. And regarding the national question, there are ample materials as to how give a concrete solution for national question. Nothing now. Even now, they are not talking about 13th Amendment. At least now, let's forget the other things. What are that is one of the main issue of the country throughout, because even Tamil and Sinhala would sacrifice their lives because of these issues. So what would be the solution for that? Nothing on the ground. So these policy debates, the policy things are not coming to the surface. That is very dangerous. That is an alarming situation because.
But it is early days. It's only been a few weeks. We all accept that.
Yes.
But we don't seem to have very many indications.
Exactly.
Maybe we are wrong. Maybe a lot of things are going on behind the scenes, and all of a sudden you'll see a lot of action on these. But so far, with the NPP setting expectations for itself very high.
At least what is the framework?
What's the framework?
We are not expecting miracles, as earlier I said, but at least the framework. So these are the areas. Economy is concerned, of course, we are not fully rely upon IMF. You can directly say that. We are going to alternative DSA. They are not telling that. For national question is concerned, this is our framework. Give us time. We are going to work on that. Nothing. So these are, one can tell, these are the issues. So these are the issues that we have to address. We need take time to do these things. But simple issues like rice mafia or coconut issue. So at least for these issues, you must come up with a firm solution. So you must directly tell, no, we are going to completely eradicate these monopolies. We will take action against that. So nothing. So then that create alarming situation where this government also going to follow the previous path. So we are being political activists, we have a concern if whatever failure of this government, that might pave the way for far fascist, far right wing to come to the power, because that has happened in the world history. So that is not, we cannot, as far as the people's party is concerned, that is very, very dangerous situation. Therefore, that's why at this time, at this instance, what we somehow want to put pressure on this government to implement certain things, and the people expected the system change. Somehow, if it is derailed, we want to take them to the path and push them to do certain things that are that will advantage for the people.
Well, it is actually the duty of other political parties,
Exactly.
other politicians, the media, civil society, to ensure that the powers that be, those who are in office now, are reminded constantly that this is the path that needs to be taken. Because this was the path that 62% of the people voted for them, because this path was promised. However, again, early days, so we really don't know what will happen in the next 2 months, 3 months. But at the same time, it would be nice to have some indications of what's going to happen, so that people are not in the dark so much, which actually rebounds, doesn't it? Because when you have social media starting to criticize, saying nothing much is going on, that actually weakens the position of the government.
Only on the other hand, now there's a bad trend, which I have experienced, that certain even for these kind of discussions, government is very reluctant to send their representative even to discuss these things. So at least if whatever policy or whatever action they are going to take up, we must have an opportunity to question them. So at least whether they are doing or not is a different thing, but at least we have that right to question them. So that now there's a dangerous trend that they are not sending their representative for political discussions as well. So therefore, what we insist, actually, what we demand from the government, be firm. Tell people this is the framework. We are not asking miracles from you, because people expectation is very high. So we being political activities, rather than take over the power, what our main priority is, somehow take things from the existing government and somehow win certain things for the sake of people. So that is our main thing. So throughout, that is our politics. Even when we are organizing student protest, even when we are organizing farmers protest, most of the time we demanded certain things from government. So now this government, the so-called people's government, so they should know about this. They should know about this. Therefore, that's why we think the people's power is very important. Merely because you appointed a new government, you gave power for NPP, don't think that everything will be moving very smoothly. That won't happen. These indications, as you correctly point out, these indications are not good for the sake of people.
Do you see perhaps a little less transparency than was expected from this government? No, for example,
yeah.
We have 22 cabinet ministers and 29 deputy ministers. Yes, we know they are working, but they don't seem to make public announcements. A few ministers do, of course, the cabinet spokesman and so on. And there's a stream of information coming out of the President's office, the Prime Minister's office, all that is there. But we don't see many of the other ministries actually coming out with a lot of information as to what is going on.
Yeah, transparency issue is concerned. Now, we know for next 10 years, the most decisive factor of this country is the IMF deal. Now, ISB agreements are concerned. Now, according to the government information, within next week, they are going to finalize it. 3 occasions, IMF officials came to Sri Lanka and had discussion with this government. So, still nobody knows what are these discussions. Still, what is the now?
We have had statements from the President's office.
Yes, but that is not sufficient. That is not sufficient. So Parliament still doesn't know what are these deals. So those are the main things that we could assess the transparency of the government. So I think they should start from that point on, because previously when they were in the opposition, when Ranil Wickremesinghe signed in these agreements, there are around 10 agreements with IMF, totally detrimental to the society. Now soon after, now these have not been divulged by Ranil Wickremesinghe. Now they are in the power. When they were in opposition, they criticized that. Now show the people these are the agreements entered with the IMF. Now this is the ISB deal, and this is the DSA that signed by the government. So transparency should start from that particular point of time, because now whatever policy they are going to implement next 10 years, everything relied upon IMF deal. Whether people should breathe or not will be decided by the IMF deal. Whatever, now for instance, now they are going to import vehicles from next year. Now we know there is a foreign reserve issue in Sri Lanka. If we are going to start the import of vehicle, then around 4 billion rupees we have to spend for that.
Yes,
US dollars.
But the exact modalities haven't been spelled out by the government.
From our reserves, 4 billion US dollars we have to spend for that. But our foreign reserves are concerned, actually usable reserves only 5 billion, out of which 4 billion we have to spend for vehicle, to import the vehicle. That is one of the conditions.
But that is if unlimited vehicle imports are allowed.
Yeah.
Which
Whatever.
Again, the government has not come out with the final methodology for this.
Yeah, but why I am saying that, in terms of the IMF deal, one of the main items that we have to remove import restrictions. So therefore now it seems that they are going to implement that. But transparency issue you asked, then government should come up with the firm, this is what we are going to do, this much of foreign reserves we are going to spend for that. Earlier IMF asked us to spend this much of money, but we are not going to spend. But so that should be the transparency. So if they can't show that transparency regarding the IMF deal, we cannot expect other ministers, because the main ministry is now with President. So from that particular point, they should start this transparency. Otherwise, we can't predict the other ministries or other ministers do the same thing.
Now, Nuwan, what about the high-profile cases which we have had over the years in Sri Lanka? Things like the garlic scam, the sugar scam, the Airbus industry scam. None of these seem to be getting the attention and the solutions that are expected over the last several regimes. I mean, it's not this government's fault. It was the previous one, the one before that, and so on. And I was reminded of this when the US State Department issued a travel ban preventing the former CEO of Sri Lankan Airlines and a former ambassador to Russia, preventing them from entering the US and their families as well. And very clearly the US State Department has spelled out with the Sri Lankan Airlines CEO, ex-CEO, it was about the Airbus industry deal. And with regard to the former ambassador, it was the MiG deal for the airport, for the Air Force rather. Now, you know, when you look at both of these are high-profile cases. We know what happened because there have been so many investigations. Yeah. But where's the justice? I mean, the US is acting, ensuring that those people can never step in there. But what's going on here? No, for example, the MiG deal is widely believed among journalists, especially journalists, to have been the reason why Lasantha Wickrematunge was murdered, because he had made revelations about the MiG deal.
Yes.
So, and then he was murdered in broad daylight in the middle of Colombo.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
Where's the justice for that?
So that's why I told the indications are not good now. For instance,
And that's been 16 years now.
Yeah.
16 years.
So now your examples are concerned, there are two sides. One side regarding the democracy, other side is regarding the economy.
But they're all tied together.
Tied together. So now I'll take example from economy. Now, for instance, now the local debt restructuring is concerned, there are local companies of borrowed loans, and we know as to how they restructured the local debt by curtailing benefit of the EPF ETF. Now, Chamber of Commerce is concerned, most of the companies which the government borrowed money through bonds are members of Chamber of Commerce. Now, chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, now government advisor, the president advisor. So he is sitting for local debt restructuring table. Not only that, he went to New York as well. So while representing creditors, can we expect him?
So you're pointing to a conflict of interest there.
Exactly. Now he is this Duminda Hulangamo. He is sitting as a member of that committee. At the same time, he is a president's advisor.
Of course, Mr. Hulangamo is not here to answer.
But I am not making allegations.
Yes.
I am not making allegations. So he is at the same time, he is the chairman of Chamber of Commerce. In the Chamber of Commerce, most of the creditors are members. The local debt are concerned members of the Chamber of Commerce. There is allegation to give benefit to these bondholders. The public funds, they curtail the benefits of the public funds. Now there is a demand from 22 lakhs of working class once again to get these benefits. But the one who representing the creditors is advising the president. So then the same thing should apply to other areas as well. The sugar scam, other scams are concerned. Most of the people who involved in these sectors now advisors of the government. So that's why the conflict comes from that side. And the democracy is concerned, of course, now they listed 7 cases. Lalit Kugan abduction, now 13 years completed yesterday, the abduction and disappearance of the Lalit Kugan. Now they listed that. As far now, I am the person who handling that case. All the documentations are there in black and white. So there is a statement of Kehriya Ramukwella, Gotabaya Rajapaksa was aware about this incident. So you can easily take the action. And other abductions and other murders like Lasantha Wickramatunge. So there are ample evidence. Now those who carried out this investigation made allegation against then government that they have not been given proper powers to do that. Now recently these certain police officers now very close to the NPP. So you can easily do these things. So at least let's forget about the economic issues. At least the democracy is concerned. This government cannot just get rid from these liabilities, responsibilities. They should immediately take these actions. So they can't take time. Because unlike other government, throughout the JVP is part of this, and they have been in, maybe not fully heartedly, but they have been in these struggles throughout. So I think we should demand this government immediately do that. We need immediate results.
Very high expectations indeed for the NPP government, and I'm afraid on that note we are out of time. My thanks to Mr. Nuwan Bopage, attorney at law and representing the People's Struggle Alliance. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you to you at home for watching. And make sure you stay tuned because the news is coming up next. Have a good evening.